Thank you everyone for joining us for today's GSA Fleet Desktop Workshop on G-Invoicing. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Megan Lavu and Monica Cush.
Thanks so much, Stacy. Welcome everyone to our session on what's coming for G-Invoicing at GSA Fleet. We have a couple of poll questions that we're going to put up here. We just want to understand, who you are within your agency, where you fall, and what your experience so far with G-Invoicing has been. So our first poll question, if you could go ahead and select an answer on your screen, is, do you know about G-Invoicing? Have you worked with the G-Invoicing processes and other aspects of your job? So quick yes, no, not sure. We'd love to hear where you're at with it. We know that this GSA Fleet training reaches a large group of folks. I think we have invites that go out to close to 10,000 people, if not more. And you all come from different areas within your agency. We've also sent out the invitation and registration information for this session to some of the financial folks within our agency partners. So just want to get a sense of where we are all at on that. So I'll give you another minute on this poll question before we move to the next one. Stacy, how are the responses coming in? Are you able to see? I'm not able to see it.
Yeah, so we've got about almost 80% of the people have responded. So I'm thinking we end it and open up the next one.
Yep, sounds great. Thanks, Stacy. All right, and our next one is your agency currently using G-Invoicing? Again, yes, no, or not sure. And it is totally okay if you are not sure if your agency is using G-Invoicing. And what we mean by that question is your agency processing orders through G-Invoicing? Do you have intergovernmental transactions that are already using the G-Invoicing process? So I'll give you a quick minute to answer this one.
All right, the responses are tapering down and we hit the 80%. So we will close this one out and bring up the last one.
Perfect. Thanks, Stacy. All right, and like Stacy said, this is our last question. What is your role in your organization as it relates to your relationship with GSA Fleet specifically? Are you a fleet manager? Are you a vehicle operator? Are you a finance officer or analyst? Do you review and approve GSA Fleet bills? You can select multiple options here. So if you are all of these things, you can select all the boxes. If you're only one or two, you can select those as well. But again, with engagement with GSA Fleet, we know that we're working with a lot of different people at different roles within their organization. And so as you're filling out this question, I do want to just preface this session today as we're trying to make it a general session, a first really formal introduction of Fleet, talking about our G-Invoicing rollout. And so there are going to be some things that maybe some of you already know, and it's, you might already know how G-Invoicing works and other people might not. So we're trying to set a baseline to get kind of everybody on the same page, and to just kind of let you know too, where we're at in our process for G-Invoicing integration, and what you as the customer might expect to see as a result of that. So are we looking good on this poll, Stacy?
Yeah, we are.
Great. All right, we'll go ahead and end the polls. As Stacy mentioned, my name is Megan Lavu. I am the branch chief in Fleet's business oversight branch. So my team is primarily responsible for managing the deployment of G-Invoicing, and we work really closely alongside Monica Cush, who is our product manager. So she's doing a lot of the GSA Fleet.gov development to make G-Invoicing, a smooth and seamless transition from a technical side. So between the two of us, we are your primary leads for G-Invoicing within GSA Fleet. And then we also are joined on this call by a team of other folks who work with me to support customers with questions related to G-Invoicing and everything else that it entails. And we'll kind of go into that a little bit here in our presentation today. So again, our agenda is to give an overview of what G-Invoicing is for those of you who might not know. We're going to talk a little bit about GSA Fleet's rollout to G-Invoicing and our timeline, what impacts we think that you can most likely expect to see. And we'll go into what our next steps are. So how GSA Fleet is going to continue working towards integration with G-Invoicing. And then we should have time at the end for Q&A. We do have folks monitoring the Q&A box right now. So if you have questions as the presentation is happening, you're welcome to type them in there. We will not pause to answer questions during this, but we might mark something to answer out loud later if we're getting a lot of questions on something. So please feel free to use that. And as Stacy mentioned really quick, I will say we do have our next training session, which will be an exact replication of this one next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. We do like to do a morning and an afternoon Eastern time session so that we can try to capture as many of you as possible. We know we have folks in Europe right now, so it's a little early for some of you who might be on the West Coast, but for those in overseas, it might be a little bit later in the afternoon. So we're trying to reach as many of you as we can. And so we also have that extra session coming up too. So just to kind of kick it off, what is G-Invoicing? So G-Invoicing is a new treasury system for managing and settling all federal intergovernmental financial transactions. So, before G-Invoicing, a lot of different federal agencies had different processes for intergovernmental transactions. There's an IPAC process. I'm jumping ahead. So there's the intergovernmental payment and collection process that we have today, which G-Invoicing will, to an extent, replace. We also know that a lot of our customer agencies use 7600A and 7600B forms to essentially, establish an interagency agreement and then, establish an obligation for costs related to intergovernmental transactions. We also know that some agencies use other formats of intergovernmental agreement or interagency agreements. And there are a vast number of other forms that agencies use to obligate their funds to, come to agreements for intergovernmental transactions and business. And G-Invoicing is essentially trying to consolidate all of those different processes into one unified process across the government. So why G-Invoicing? I kind of talked a little bit about it already, but the first is standardization of the data, of terminology, of processes across federal agencies. I think we all know very well that every agency has its own acronyms, its own nomenclature. You can use 5 different words to describe the exact same thing, depending on what agency you're talking about. So G-Invoicing is an attempt to standardize a lot of that process and terminology. It also provides increased transparency at every phase of the buy-sell process. So, because it has those standardized steps and standardized processes that everyone is following, it ensures that both the requesting agency, so, you, our customer, and a selling agency like GSA Fleet are on the same page with exactly what's expected and going to be delivered and the cost of that product or service being delivered. It also results in improved communication and consistency because you're using a common platform and common language. So that kind of goes back to that standardization again. We're all going to be speaking the same language, which means we can all communicate a little bit better with each other. It also should result in a quicker, more efficient settlement of funds as the result of documented agreements and obligations. So because we followed a specific process where you as the customer have requested a very specific product or service, GSA Fleet has delivered on that very specific product or service, the settlement of funds should be much more simplified and streamlined. So how does it work? And this is a very simplified look at how G-Invoicing works. So the first step is to establish a GT&C, which stands for General Terms and Conditions. This is an agreement that essentially replaces the current 7600A process or the need for an alternative type of interagency agreement. It outlines the scope of the agreement and the responsibilities of each party. Once you have a GT&C in place, you can start processing orders against that GT&C. So you have an order and authorization process where either the customer is initiating a request for goods or the seller, GSA Fleet, is initiating an order for goods and services. This replaces the 7600B, so it will in a standard order process through G-Invoicing. It does establish the obligation and books it on both the requesting and servicing agency side. There are going to be some services that bypass the order authorization step through what G-Invoicing is calling the 7600 EZ process, which GSA Fleet will be utilizing, and we are going to be the first big GSA entity rolling out the EZ process. So a little bit more to come on that in the slides here. And I know that that's something that for anybody in your agency who's in the finance office or who is deeply in the G-invoicing sphere, the 7600 easy process is potentially a new concept for you as well. And so we'll be working together to help roll that one out. And then finally, as I mentioned just a little bit before, is the payment. So upon delivery and receipt of goods, you order a vehicle from us with specifications at a specific price. We deliver that vehicle to you. You acknowledge and accept delivery of that vehicle. Then payment is transmitted. This replaces that IPAC process that we have today. So who will be impacted? The short answer is all federal agencies. So Treasury is mandating that G-invoicing be used for all federal to federal payments. For GSA Fleet, this means that if you are a customer of GSA Fleet, meaning you utilize vehicle purchasing, fleet leasing, or short-term rental, all of your billing and transactions will flow through G-invoicing moving forward once your agency is ready to use G-invoicing. Any other payments made directly between GSA and another federal agency are also must use G-invoicing. Note that if you or folks within your agency already have an agreement with GSA Fleet for a cross-service agreement, there are going to be some exceptions, and we can work with you on a one-on-one basis for understanding whether that agreement is going to need to be put into G-invoicing or not. Who is exempt from G-invoicing? So non-federal business. If you are on this call right now and you are a tribal entity, you are DC government, or you are a contractor, you probably could hang up if you wanted to, unless you really want to learn about G-invoicing. You are exempt. G-invoicing is only for federal to federal transactions. So if you are any of these three entities right now, your billing processes and everything will remain the same. You should not notice any differences in your engagement with GSA Fleet because you will not be using G-invoicing. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Monica to talk about the GSA Fleet rollout.
Okay, thank you so much, Megan. So as Megan mentioned, I am the product manager for business management, and I'm responsible for development to ensure this smooth transition for everyone, both fleet and our customers with G-invoicing. Next slide, please. Thank you. GSA Fleet will begin utilizing two separate workflows in G-invoicing, and depending on the GSA Fleet business will determine the workflow. So we have the G-invoicing 7600 EZ process and the standard seller facilitated order. So the 7600 EZ process is primarily for reoccurring services, and that will include fleet leasing, short-term rental, and something new in FY26 would be for managed services. So managed services would provide our customers with the option to utilize some of the services we provide to fleet leasing customers for their agency-owned vehicles. And the standard seller facilitated order workflow would be for any non-reoccurring services. So right now that's for our vehicle purchasing. And there is a little note on here to remind everyone that these are required workflows for GSA Fleet business. And these are the only two that are going to be supported for a fleet. No other G-invoicing process will be supported. However, if you work with GSA for other businesses, they may be utilizing another or similar workflow. Next slide, thank you. So we're going to talk about non-reoccurring services and that's categorized as for our vehicle purchasing. The standard seller facilitated process will be introduced with the order authorization pause step. So the standard seller facilitated process, it's called seller facilitated because GSA is the seller, and that's who is going to be initiating the G-invoicing order. And this order authorization, setting up the G-invoicing order, is kind of like setting up your funding component in G-invoicing. So it's going to include data elements such as the ALC and the TAS. So replacing that 7600B. GSA will not place vehicle orders without this approval. It will be mandatory prior to any order being sent to our supplier. And also any order modifications that change the price will require this reauthorization.
And the reason that this is classified as seller facilitated is because you, our customer, are going into gsafleet.gov to build your order, and gsafleet.gov is sending that to G-invoicing. So because the connection with G-invoicing is coming from GSA, that's why it's considered seller facilitated. But you as our customer will still continue to be able to build your vehicle requirements and requests within gsafleet.gov as you do today. Just wanted to clarify that in case anybody was wondering why it was seller facilitated.
Thanks, Megan. Okay, so leasing, short-term rental, and other services, I mentioned managed services, are reoccurring services, and they will be using the 7600 EZ process, and there will be no order authorization pause step. However, DoD entities can no longer have can have a unique billing details at the vehicle level. All accounting must be consistent across BOAC. So what does that mean? So let's say you have BOAC 57, 1, 2, 3, 4, has 5 vehicles on your leasing non-accident BOAC. Today, you're able to add a line of accounting for each tag on that particular BOAC. However, with G-Invoicing and having a G-Invoicing enabled BOAC, you will no longer have that ability. You would have to create a new BOAC to support that. However, it does allow for fleet services to continue uninterrupted without that pause step, and it will be similar to what you experience with IPAC today. All right. G-Invoicing implementation will be gradual. So GSA does recognize that we don't want to implement something against all the agencies at the same time. So they're going to be working slowly with agencies to roll this out across the various business lines to ensure there are no disruptions to billing or the ordering process. Next slide, Megan. What is the impact? So we all want to know, what's the biggest impact? How is it going to affect me? So the biggest impact is going to be with our vehicle purchasing process, so non-leasing, and the billing for all fleet services, leasing, purchasing, short-term rental, and eventually managed services. It's going to affect billing because now these billing transactions are going to be settled in G-Invoicing. And with that, there's different settlement requirements and different things that can happen in G-Invoicing that maybe customers are not used to with using the IPAC system today. Next slide. Okay, vehicle purchasing. So I mentioned that order authorizations, customers must approve each order, so each individual vehicle in G-Invoicing prior to the order being finalized by GSA and sent to the supplier. So it's really important for anybody that has that role and responsibility in G-Invoicing to ensure they're set up properly. So when these order authorizations are sent to G-Invoicing, that they are approved timely, because it can hold up one or many orders being sent to the supplier and, ensuring that your mission is still completed. So vehicle modifications with price changes will also need this order authorization pause step and will not be processed until this is done. Also, what's unique with the vehicle purchasing and the non-reoccurring services using the seller facilitated order is that customers can no longer reject billed services. So once a billing transaction is settled in G-Invoicing, it is settled. There is no option to reject a charge. So maybe if you have finance people on the call, if you're used to processing a chargeback, that no longer will be a capability with G-Invoicing. Next slide, Meg. So for our reoccurring service impacts, leasing, short-term rental, and managed services is credit. So in IPAC today, you're used to seeing a credit transaction being processed against a specific line of accounting or obligation. So with the 7600 EZ process, credits are not given to agencies directly as they are done today. Credits are going to be settled against other charges on a current bill, actually occurring in GSA's accounting system of record prior to it even going to G-Invoicing. So if credits are in excess of your current billed amount, the excess is actually going to be held and applied to future statements. And large dollar credits that maybe are the result of covered vehicles or accident claims, it may take multiple billing cycles in order for that credit to be realized. Now, the difference between the 7600 EZ and the standard seller facilitated workflow is that billing disputes can be made within 30 days. After 30 days, the order is actually settled and no longer can be disputed in G-Invoicing, but still there's that 30-day window that something could be rejected. So I'm hoping everyone figures that out on day 31. So then it all gets settled. And rest assured, I know a lot of customers are very look to VCSS in order to pull those billing details and the PDF statement copies. All of that is still going to be completely available as it is today. It will also be available if any of your transactions are settled in G-Invoicing. Next slide, Meg. So what everyone wants to know, there are many processes that will remain unchanged. So like Megan had mentioned earlier, GSAfleet.gov will be your interface to initiate the vehicle orders and engage GSA Fleet service offerings. That is not going away and will stay the same. Fleet billing frequency, formats, and processes will largely be unchanged. You may see some verbiage change on your statements. You're used to maybe seeing something like this IPAC has been settled. You're not going to see reference maybe to IPAC, but the overall format will remain unchanged. And like I said before, rest assured, VCSS is still available, will still be available with G-Invoicing, as well as the PDF statements.
All right.
Pass it back over to you, Megan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. We have a lot of really good questions coming through, and so we will definitely get to them as we get near the end here. But just wrapping up, I wanted to kind of let you know how we're going to get to April 2026 and what the next steps are for GSA Fleet's integration with G-Invoicing. So this is a big slide, but it just shows you that we've got a lot of work cut out for us. The first step that we're working towards, and we've already taken, we made progress towards it, is to establish those GT&Cs. So GSA Fleet is the one who's reaching out to your agency to kind of initiate that process. Some of your agencies have been very proactive and already reached out to us. And we are working to establish those GT&Cs at the highest possible level within your agency. And the reason for that is because GSA is providing a standard service, right? We have a customer leasing guide, we have a vehicle purchasing guide. So our terms and conditions are the same for all of our customers. So it doesn't make sense to have a lot of separate GT&Cs established at lower levels because they would all look exactly the same. So we are working, and we're working with your headquarters finance folks who lead up G-Invoicing within your agency, as well as your headquarters fleet managers, to implement GT&Cs at the highest possible level within your agency. We are going to require 2 GT&Cs, one for recurring services. So that's if you're utilizing leasing, short-term rental, or want to engage in any of our managed service offerings that we might have in the future. We will have 1 GT&C for all of those. And then a separate GT&C for the non-recurring transactions, which would be GSA vehicle purchasing. If your agency doesn't buy vehicles from GSA, we don't need to create that GT&C. We can just have the one that covers the recurring services. We are working with your agencies at a high level to determine agency readiness. One of the questions that I saw come in on the Q&A was, I thought that G-Invoicing was mandatory by this date. So how is it going to be a slow rollout? Every agency is at a different level right now in terms of their readiness to deploy G-Invoicing. For example, some parts of GSA right now are already using G-Invoicing for their transactions, and GSA Fleet is not yet ready. We won't be ready until April of 2026. We know that some of your agencies won't be ready in April of 2026. And in that instance, we will continue with the normal billing processes that we have today. We have received an exception from Treasury to continue using IPAC until we are able to migrate everyone over to G-Invoicing. Now, Treasury has a timeline for IPAC. They're not letting it stay open unlimited, but they are being reasonable with understanding that the easy process is something that's going to be very new for a lot of agencies, and additional work is needed from a lot of agencies to be ready to utilize that service line. So we are, like I said, we are planning for that gradual rollout in April of 2026. I imagine that we will pick for that very first month 1 or 2 agencies to start with. Assuming everything is running smoothly, we'll add a couple more agencies and a couple more agencies. So if your agency is really advanced with G-Invoicing, you've done a lot of business through it, you have a really strong, financial team at a centralized level to review and manage transactions, that'll probably be a first adopter to G-Invoicing with GSA Fleet. We want to make sure that this is successful, and we want to make sure that there aren't any kinks in the process that can greatly affect all of you, because we know that G-Invoicing has implications for your orders and your billing, which are 2 very important and sensitive areas. GSA Fleet is, I've seen a lot of questions about wallet, which first of all, I love because we had not mentioned the word wallet at all. And so many of you are asking about it, which is great. It means that we have people on this call who understand what wallet is used for and understand our billing processes. So for those of you who don't, Wallet is an interface within gsafleet.gov where our customers enter their treasury account symbol and supplemental billing information for GSA Fleet billing today. And we use that information to process IPAC transactions today. Once your agency is determined ready to have orders processed through G-Invoicing with GSA Fleet, my team is going to be working to load and update all of your wallet transactions with the GT&C number and agency location code to facilitate that G-Invoicing process. So you probably won't notice significant changes to wallet. It will still exist. We will still be documenting treasury account symbols. We are going to add a couple more fields, like I said, for that GT&C number and the ALC, but we are hoping to help you out so that you don't have to go in and update 100 BOACs with that information. We'll try to bulk upload it for you in coordination with you and your headquarters or central funding entity within your agency so that we know that everything is set up properly and can facilitate those orders moving forward properly. So again, Wallet will still be used. You will still, maintain your treasury account symbol in Wallet. You'll maintain any supplemental accounting information. We will still collect those fields, and those fields will be populated on your VCSS detailed billing statements, as well as for some of those fields and on your G-Invoicing transaction as well. So there will be some changes to Wallet, but probably not a lot. It will continue to be used as our primary source for billing information for your agency. And again, Wallet is only for federal customers. If you are non-federal and still on this call, don't worry about Wallet. And like I said, we will continue to utilize the IPAC process until G-Invoicing is, fully integrated with your agency. Depending on, Treasury, I know I've been on calls with them. There's a lot of support within their agency and leadership to move customer agencies to G-Invoicing quickly. They don't want to maintain the IPAC process in addition to G-Invoicing. So we are against some timelines there, but we do have some room to continue using IPAC until everybody is really ready and fully integrated, at least on a mass level, to G-Invoicing. All right, so I said it once, but I'm going to keep saying it again and again. We are working at the highest level within your agency to prepare for G-Invoicing. GT&Cs and the determination of readiness is really going to be coordinated centrally to the extent possible within your agencies. And our goal is to, switch over an agency to go through the G-Invoicing process at a whole agency level where possible. So again, for those of you who might be a local vehicle driver, or you just, review the billing statement of one BOAC that has a couple of vehicles, you might not be involved in those conversations on G-Invoicing integration. We'll be working at, a higher level within your agency. But your agency might be working with you directly to, again, continue to validate those bills, make sure that the charges that are being assessed to you are valid. Like Monica said, there is still that 30-day window where if there's something that you dispute on the charge, you can reject it and we can work through those processes for the leasing and short-term rental programs. And then training. So this is a big, for those of us in the finance world, G-Invoicing is a big thing. If you are in the fleet world and you don't really do a ton with billing, hopefully it's not a big thing for you like it is for us. But because we know there are going to be quite a few processes changing, and there's a lot that all of our agency customers have to do to get ready for this, we do have plans for quite a bit of training coming out. So here you're welcome to our very first session on it. Like I mentioned, we have another one next Wednesday, June 3rd at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And it's going to be the exact same content and material that we've delivered here today. Starting in July, our goal is to do quarterly Q&A sessions about G-Invoicing, and those are really going to be geared towards folks within, the systems or finance side within your agency, although, anybody is welcome to join to ask questions about how, whatever questions you have related to where your agency is at with G-Invoicing and where GSA Fleet is at with G-Invoicing, to make sure that we are all in coordination and moving towards that same goal of deployment as soon as possible in April 2026. We do have the registration for the Q&A session for July is available on our website where you registered for the session today. And we will add links for additional sessions in the future. GSA is undergoing some changes to our web platforms, so we don't know what platform we'll use after July, but we will still be in Zoom in July and be able to host that Q&A session. If they're widely attended and we find that there's a lot of customer engagement on them, we may increase the frequency to be monthly or as needed. But for right now, we're planning for them to be quarterly. And then by February of 2026, we're kind of hoping to do another session, kind of similar to this one, but we'll be really close to our integration with G-Invoicing at that point, and we can share more specific details, hopefully with some screenshots about where our system is going to be changing and looking different. Since we are still about a year away, our developers are still actually, building the system and that integration capability. So we didn't get into a lot of the nitty-gritty details here today, but I promise you, as we have those available, we will make them available to you. There could be additional sessions added in that aren't reflected here on the slide. So we are here to communicate as much as possible with everything that we know, and in order to ensure a smooth transition to G-Invoicing for all of our customers. And so with that, I'm going to leave this slide up as we kind of go through some of the questions. You can see there is an email address here. It's GSA_G-invoicing@gsa.gov. That is my team's central email account for all fleet-related G-invoicing questions. We have experts on hand who are monitoring that mailbox every day and using that mailbox to initiate conversations with your agency. So that is where you can reach us best. And with that, I will look to some of the Q&A that we have and some of the things that we've marked to answer live. One of the ones that we got live, the question was, is G-Invoicing impacted by a different funding level? So if you aren't appropriated, do you have to use G-Invoicing versus if you are using appropriated funding, do you have to use G-Invoicing? The answer is that all federal business has to use G-Invoicing. So regardless of the color of your money or where the source of the money is, if it's a government to government transaction, so if you're Army to GSA, Department of Energy to GSA, we have to have G-Invoicing used. So it's not about the color of your money, it's about whether you're a federal agency or not. Okay. And then again, we got a lot of questions about VCSS, but it was before Monica had mentioned the VCSS point on the slides, but I really want to emphasize and send that point home. VCSS is still where you will go to access detailed billing information. So I'm not somebody who's, super familiar with what an IPAC transaction looks like, but the amount of information that you're going to get in G-Invoicing is probably going to be very similar to the amount of information that is on a specific IPAC transaction. So if you really need to get down to reviewing vehicle level billed charges, you are still going to go to VCS to see those details related to those charges. So the PDF statements will still be there. All of the reports that you can download into Excel will all still be there, and will be how you validate your charges and make sure everything looks okay coming from GSA Fleet. All right, those were the questions that I had kind of gotten caught up with, but a lot have come in since I started talking. So I don't know if Jason or Ryan, if one of you want to come off mute and indicate if there's any questions we also want to answer out loud.
I just wanted to actually bring up, so I saw a lot of questions about Wallet and the line of accounting that is being entered in Wallet. I want to let you know for the 7600 easy process, so leasing and short-term rental, that you're used to entering maybe a standard doc number or a line of accounting in Wallet. For the 7600 easy process, we will be able to map whatever obligating document number that is entered in Wallet on that transaction in G-Invoicing. However, the line of accounting information or supplemental accounting information that gets added, we can only map right now for our DoD customers. So I know with the civilian wallet, I believe there's 2 fields that you can enter, one for the standard doc number and one for supplemental accounting. Again, I can only map it right now, the standard doc number, but for DoD, we can also map any supplemental accounting information on that transaction in G-Invoicing. G-Invoicing gives a lot of required fields on the easy, but not the required fields that you would want. So we're kind of utilizing some of the optional fields that are available to us to get that information in G-Invoicing, so you guys can make the reconciliation process a little bit easier.
Building off of that a little bit, there have been quite a few questions about the 7600 EZ process, and we're well aware that this is different from agency to agency. It's something that will have to be implemented at the high level within your agency, and we're working with each of you individually to make sure that you have that process flag enabled. So we're working with you individually on that process.
All right. Any other questions that we want to answer out loud here? I'm getting some questions about Wallet that I see about, whether the LOA that's being entered into Wallet will be used. I think Monica kind of went over this. Just want to reiterate, yes, the information that is provided in Wallet is what is used to facilitate the G-Invoicing transaction. So Wallet contains the treasury account symbol, the ALC, your GT&C number, as well as supplemental accounting information that will be provided in the G-Invoicing transaction to direct where the funds are coming from to support paying the bill that we issue. So Wallet is still your number one source for all accounting information for GSA Fleet to bill you properly. All right, let's see.
Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. This is Angela.
Hi, Angela.
I see a lot of questions about multiple line of accounting. I don't know if Monica wants to address that.
I don't see the exact question. Could someone?
It says, what do you have to do when you have multiple LOA? Let's see here. It says, will you be, let's see here. Will you be open creating seller facilitator orders with multiple accounting lines?
I can maybe take that one too.
Okay.
So within GSA Wallet today, all of our civilian customers can only enter one line of accounting for a BOAC. So if you are a leasing customer and you have 100 vehicles on your BOAC, you can only have one line of accounting for those 100 vehicles. If you're on the DoD side today, you do have an exception to that. So on the DoD side, if you had 100 vehicles on a BOAC in Wallet, you could go in and enter unique lines of accounting for all of the vehicles. You could have 100 lines of accounting for that one BOAC. That is going away with G-Invoicing. My team right now is just finishing up an analysis of the BOACs that have that kind of a situation, and we will be working directly with you to set up additional BOACs so that you have your BOAC set up for one line of accounting for all the vehicles on that BOAC to support it. So there are going to be opportunities for you to kind of have, to break out those BOACs so that we're billing at the level that you need to bill for your agency. On the purchasing side, if you're talking about, purchasing a vehicle, your order uses a BOAC, and that BOAC has one line of accounting associated with it. So it's just a matter of when you place your order, entering the BOAC that is associated with the line of accounting that you need to fulfill that order. So again, we do have within Wallet, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, there are business lines within Wallet. So you could have one BOAC that's used for buying vehicles as well as leasing vehicles, and you can have different lines of accounting for buying versus leasing, but within this business line of leasing, non-accidents, leasing accidents, short-term rental, and purchasing, you have one line of accounting within each of those business lines. So we can definitely, talk more about that with you if you're not familiar with how Wallet works in that respect, but that's kind of how the direction that we're moving. If you're a civilian customer, your accounts are already set up perfectly. DoD, it just gets a little bit more complex on the leasing side. And so, I'm seeing more questions coming in with Wallet. I see what happens if you don't have Wallet. All of our business is using Wallet right now. So it could just be that you as an individual don't have access to it. And you can definitely reach out to us and we can help you. Reach out to your headquarters fleet manager, who's the one who controls who within your agency has access to edit and view Wallet, and kind of get you guys linked up to get, your permissions in place if necessary. Monica, we have a question on, will GSA Fleet be willing to test easy functionality with agencies? And if so, when? Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so I know, Megan, I know that Gail can set that up with agencies. If there is a particular agency, could you email me? Or actually email the GSA fleet _ G-invoicing@gsa.gov, and then we can set you up with that. I'm not exactly sure when. I heard from another meeting, possibly as early as this summer. So if you could maybe provide additional details as to who would be doing that test to that mailbox, I'll be able to direct you to the right person who's actually handling that with agencies.
All right. So one of the questions that we have in here, or a couple of the questions that I've seen, is about our integration with G-Invoicing happening in the middle of a fiscal year, and what that might mean for agencies. I definitely would encourage you to talk within your financial teams about what that might mean within your agency. One thing to remember about the EZ process that we'll be using for leasing an STR is that it likely will still require your agency to obligate funds manually, because there is not that order authorization component to it. So GSA Fleet isn't booking an obligation for you, if you will, for those services. So if you create an obligation at the beginning of the fiscal year, it will really depend on how your agency is set up to manage those obligations, whether you might need one for half of the fiscal year and another one for the G-invoicing component, or if you can use the same obligation regardless of how the payment itself is being processed. Because remember, G-invoicing is for leasing and short-term rental through that EZ process is mostly a payment processing component. That obligation will still need to be likely established on your agency side, but that's something to work through with your financial agency, and then we're happy to connect with you too. And that's kind of goes back to the making sure our agencies are ready to deploy G-invoicing before we actually, move you to it. And so if you're not ready to do it in the middle of the fiscal year because of whatever reason, then we can definitely talk about, when we want to activate that for your agency. And another question of what is being used if G-invoicing is not integrated yet, we'll continue to use our current billing processes. So until your agency is ready for G-invoicing, you will not notice a change in the billing or order processing for your agency. We'll continue to use IPAC or issue those manual bills, which you can pay via credit card. And yeah. Any other questions that folks on my team see that they want to answer out loud right now? I'm just scrolling through myself here too. I'm seeing some questions about credits. So if I'm being perfectly honest, I feel all of your pain with this question. It doesn't make me feel really comfortable either. I love to get you all your credit, immediately and not have anything sit out there. When we're talking about, crossing fiscal years, I know it can get complicated. I think for the most part, GSA Fleet, from what I have seen, we do not issue massive, we're not issuing $30,000 credits all the time, and we're not issuing them on bills that don't have multiple vehicles. So I do think the crossing of fiscal years and those large dollar credits is a smaller piece of the pie than most. A lot of our credits are smaller. From what I have seen, most billing statements can be settled within the same month with credits. So on a large scale, it really shouldn't hopefully be something that you all notice or are feeling. If you are a customer who experiences a large credit, you have a very small BOAC, meaning you only have a couple vehicles getting charged to this BOAC, and it looks like it's going to take a long time for that credit to get paid out, please reach out to GSA Fleet. There may be opportunities for us to manually do something behind the scenes. That'll be limited to these extreme circumstances though, right? Where you have a $30,000 credit, but your bills monthly are only like $500. And, we can work with you to make sure that you get your credit applied, because we know budgets are tight. We know funding is limited. So we will work with you. I think for the most part though, you all should be seeing your credits settle fully within 1 month, if not 2 months at most. So I don't think it'll be too big of an issue. But definitely we are here to work with you through that. We want you to get your money. We don't want to be holding on to it and, applying it to all kinds of future bills. So that's not something that we love either. And I promise we are doing our best to make sure that it doesn't, that your funding doesn't get tied up. So if there ever is a specific example, once we get to that point, we are happy to work with you through it. Please just reach out to us, because it is not our intention to, hold on to your money or anything like that. But I think it should hopefully be okay, given what, our analysis of the amount of dollar amounts that our credits are and the total bills that we issue every month. So another question that we got was, will you use the treasury account symbol information entered in wallet while creating the seller facilitated order? If yes, does the requesting agency have the ability to update the TAS information when received? So that's a great question. The answer is yes. The treasury account symbol in wallet is what's used to generate the order authorization. If there is something wrong with that treasury account symbol, once we send it to you for order authorization, you do have the ability to come back to us and say, use a different TAS, and we can apply a different TAS. We would also ask that wallet be updated so that future orders that go through there are using the proper TAS as well. But yes, that is something that you will have the opportunity to edit. Monica, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that when you do receive that order authorization in G-Invoicing, you do have the opportunity to update the treasury account symbol on that order authorization. And I encourage you to do that. So then when billings are processed, they hit against the correct treasury account symbol. But again, going back to Megan's point, after you do make that change, please update it in wallet. So both systems are synchronized. We don't have a way to update it in wallet after it's changed on the order authorization.
I'm seeing a lot of questions about multiple lines of accounting. And so we know, I think it's DoD is especially, it's going to be a big change in the DoD process. We are following G-Invoicing rules though here. So like I said, we will create additional BOACs if needed to be able to support all of the lines of accounting that you need to bill your vehicles at. The purchasing of a vehicle, if you're buying one vehicle, I see one question here that says, what if purchases are split funded across multiple treasury symbols? Are you saying you only support one TAS per G-Invoicing order, even for vehicle purchases? So vehicles are purchased one vehicle per order, and that order can only use one treasury account symbol. That is a treasury rule. So if your agency is using multiple treasury account symbols to fund one individual vehicle, that is a little bit complex and maybe something that you need to talk within your own financial agency about whether that's proper use of funds. But that's a treasury rule right there of one treasury account symbol per vehicle order for the transactions. We report to treasury financial transactions, intergovernmental transactions between agencies, and it's a one TAS per transaction level report. There are some other questions. I see a really good question of those who are not aware of what wallet is or the process of wallet. Can you provide reference documents? We definitely can. Feel free to reach out to us. We also have additional training that my team is also supporting coming up in the month of June about the FY26 rates and the billing process, where we will do a quick overview of wallet there as well. So highly encourage you all to attend that session. If you're able to, it'll be very informative, very related to G-Invoicing. But most of the presentation will be focused on our current day processes for billing. It won't be a G-Invoicing focus session, but we will definitely overview wallet as well as our new rates for FY26. So please put a little plug there for that one. All right, any other questions that folks on my team see? I know there are a lot coming in here, but a lot of them are pretty similar. Some of you have very specific questions related to your specific agency or your case. I would highly encourage you to reach out to us at GSA_G-Invoicing@gsa.gov, where we can better assist you directly with the specific details of your agency situation. I see a question of, will we still see a list of the credits individually? That in BCSS in your billing details statement, you will absolutely be able to see individual credits. For GSA Fleet Leasing, you will also be able to go into gsafleet.gov and download an AIE report, which will give you more details for the credit as well. We got one really good clarifying point from I see one from our finance team. So somebody had asked if you use the wrong TAS, can you fix it? So that my answer was related to seller facilitated order process for the purchase of a vehicle. If you are if it's GSA Fleet Leasing or short-term rental and your TAS is incorrect through the easy process, it's likely that you have to reject the whole easy transaction, and then we will have to rebill under the right TAS. So just a clarification there, because there's not that order authorization pause step that it happens on the seller facilitated order process. So it'd kind of be like today's chargeback. The way that you all manage a chargeback today would be very similar to that, where you would essentially charge back the bill to GSA so that we could rebill using the correct line of accounting. And you would need to update wallet in that instance as well, so that future bills would be correct. Thanks for that reminder. All right. I see a lot of folks who are on the implementation side for your agency and want to understand the different platforms that have been discussed here, like gsafleet.gov, Wallet, and BCSS. That's a great feedback to have, and maybe what we can do is offer a specific session, or we can kind of go over that at the beginning of a Q&A session that we do. So I'll take that back to my team, and we'll figure out how to best deliver some of that information to you all, because I know it's important for the folks on the finance side and the G-Invoicing implementation side of your agency to understand what folks in the fleet world already understand. So yeah, we will make sure to get that for you. I see there's a question about whether we'll do a live demo of the process. Once we get there with our development, absolutely. We will for sure be sharing that information with you as we have it. Our teams are still working on the development and user interface though, so we don't have anything that we can show today. But during the Q&A sessions, we hope to open up each Q&A session with a demo of where we're at so far. And then again, once we get closer to like the February, March timeframe, we will absolutely share as much as we can with you all to see. Great. I know we're getting really close to time here. There are some questions in here that we still won't be able to answer. So please do reach out to us. Monica, anything else? I know that you've been monitoring and chatting on the side here as well. Anything else you want to add before we close it out?
No, I'm good, Megan. Thanks.
Okay. We know that this is going to be a lot, and we are here to support. I want you all to know that we are here as your partner and trying to make it as smooth as possible with everything else that we all in all of our agencies have going on. So, you know, thank you in advance for your patience with us. Please reach out. We are here to answer questions as best we can and, you know, to support you through all of this. So thank you for your partnership through it. I think it's going to be good once we get it all working, but it might be a little tricky until we get there. So, you know, we'll all stick with it together and hopefully come out the other side in a good spot. With that, Stacy, do you want any closing words that you want to provide?
I just want to say thank you to our presenters and to everyone in attendance. I know this is a big change and it is going to be, you know, it's going to be a challenge for, I think, all of us in some ways. But as Megan said, they're going to be offering some different opportunities to get training and different methods for reaching out when there are questions. I encourage you to utilize all of that as you can and stay tuned. That link that was provided with where, you know, it's the link you registered for today's session. It has the slides that you can download for the next 30-ish days. When we have the recording, it will be added there. I encourage you to bookmark that page to make it easier to go back to. You know, if for some reason you missed it, you miss an invite to one of our future live sessions, you can always check that website to see, do we have anything upcoming? Or let me go back and look at some of the old videos. We don't keep all of the direct links to the videos up there, but there is a link to our YouTube channel that has the full library. And that library was recently cleaned up, and all of the outdated videos are gone. So anything up there should still have relevant content for what is going on today. That doesn't mean that something might not become out of date tomorrow. Things are definitely changing faster than we can keep up with them sometimes. But we are doing our best to keep all of that updated for you. And I know I saw a question in there about like new fleet managers, and I don't think this is necessarily going to be 100% helpful to your question in relation to the financial side of things and G-Invoicing and wallet and VCSS and all of that. But if we have anybody on that is new in this world, in this arena, and you're really drinking from the fire hose, I do want to encourage you to check out our Federal Fleet Manager Certification Program. It's all self-paced online courses. It's 8 or 9 courses, depending on if you take all 3 electives or just the required 2. Gives you a really nice overview of all things federal fleet management and can kind of get you introduced to some of the lingo and some of the things that are going on. We don't go into specifics of how to do anything in the systems because that stuff changes way too frequently. But on gsafleet.gov, on the help page, there are user guides and how-to videos and all of those things. So depending on where you are and what information you're trying to get, there are lifelines out there. I can't promise it's going to address 100% of all of your questions and your needs, but those are some really good starting points of things that are available to you whenever you need them and want to check them out. That was a lot for me to end things. I don't feel like I usually do that. Again, thank you to everyone for joining and to our amazing presenters today. We have almost made it to Friday. This is a weird week with the holiday on Monday. I feel like those weeks always feel a little bit harder. So I hope you're doing well, and stay that way, and that you enjoy whatever this next weekend is going to bring you.
Really quick, Stacy, somebody
Yeah.
asked, can you repeat where to locate the Fleet Manager Certification Program?
Yes. So there's a couple ways to do it. If you had grabbed the link for where to register and the presentation and everything from today, if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, there is a link there. But let me also put it in our chat here. So if you go to the gsa.gov website and you navigate to the fleet pages, you should eventually get to it. But the shortcut to it is gsa.gov/FFMCP, which stands for Federal Fleet Manager Certification Program. And if all else fails, I'm going to put our fleet training mailbox in the chat as well. No, it helps if I put the right thing at the end. So fleet_training@gsa.gov. If you have trouble finding any of the training resources, reach out to that mailbox and we will get you pointed in the right direction. All right, I'm gonna start to push all of the buttons to close us out.